on the back to this quote. I don't think this surprises anyone. We do know that women outlive men, but on an average, you can see these ages. So when you're planning for retirement, you're planning 15, 20 plus years, which is because the life expectancy is longer than ever before. Longevity is a huge risk for retirement planning. And so you have to understand how you're going to spend your retirement and how many years you believe you will be in retirement and with your crystal ball, right? And in order to really play that longevity game. It's a double-edged sword. You want a healthy life to live your retirement, but obviously as you're getting a little bit older, there's a lot of risks there to plan for. While we talked a little bit about the 82, 85 age, there is a percentage that there's a chance for people to live into their 90s. And we're seeing this now more than ever. And so that is kind of a scary prospect when you're thinking about we polled earlier about not outliving your income and having guaranteed income for life. And so it's more important now than ever to really focus in on a plan that lasts a lifetime, well beyond that 15, 20 years. So why does it matter? You have to do careful planning. You're going to be depleting your funds if you don't do that. How many times have we may have said to ourselves, or maybe our friends have said, money has always come. When I needed it, it's always come, or it's been there. It may have been a struggle, but we found it. Well, you cannot think that way as it relates to your retirement planning. The sooner you get started, the better. That is something we all know, but yet we focus a lot on our expenses and a little on our investments. So it's very important to do careful planning at every stage in our financial journey, but certainly as we mature as individuals for ourselves and our family. Inflation. I love this quote. And inflation, I love that you're paying 15. I don't love that we're paying it, but I love the quote of paying $15 for a $10 haircut that used to cost you $5 when you had hair. This is very true. Inflation is a real thing. Short-term and long-term inflation is something that is a huge risk to our retirement accounts because of what we just cited. It eats away at your purchasing power, and then that means you need a different amount of money in order to survive in your retirement, let alone thrive. So that's something you have to plan for is inflation risk, that longevity and that inflation risk. So if you think about a Big Mac, and I actually looked this up because Big Mac is more expensive depending on where you're at, but it averages almost $6. And when you think about a Big Mac in the 80s, it was $1. I mean, we were talking about Taco Bell. It was a handful of weeks ago. I can't remember exactly who I was talking to, but I remember going to Taco Bell and getting a full meal and it was less than $3. So, I mean, that's inflation for you, right? So, trends apply to everything. It's not fast food. It is housing, it's healthcare, it's everyday goods. Check out the Honda Accord in 1980 for $6,500 and then in 2025 for over $36,000. It's very real. And so this is something that, again, at every stage of your life, you should be planning for, but certainly when you're focusing in on your retirement planning. So this chart is just a really nice visual. Take away the words and look at the line. You can see here just what the value of $100 has shifted to from 1974 to 2000 for 2025. Look at that drop. So when you have a fixed income, when you are retired, you struggle with inflation. So when you're thinking about Social Security benefits, that is pretty fixed. There really isn't much that accounts for inflation there. And so when you have your standard of living and a restricted income and a fixed income and costs arise, think about how tight that is. And think about then what you may have to do in order to really supplement that income. Investors need to be aware of these threats. The people that have invited you here today are absolutely aware of these threats. And there's another threat known as sequence of returns risk, and it can jeopardize your whole entire retirement nest egg. So how this works is With this chart, it really kind of lays it out nicely. In order to invest your returns in your retirement accounts, the order of investment returns on your retirement accounts can significantly impact your savings. This is really true right before and right after you retire. And why does that matter? So if performance within your investments are poor early in your retirement, combined with when you're taking the money, just think about what that's going to do to your portfolio. And so you could have, if you have losses earlier on, that's a significant impact to the longevity of your plan. So impact on your portfolio, we have an example here to help bring this home. Look at how compelling scenario A is versus scenario B. Both have the same amount of money, the 500,000, both have the same amount of withdrawals, both have the same investment. So we're comparing apples to apples, but the difference is the negative returns relative to those withdrawals. So I'm going to pause here just a little bit so you guys can take a look at this chart. Look at those withdrawals. So if you start withdrawing just a little bit around the negative, or I should say losses, look at how you're 10 years into this, a little over 10 years into it, and you're out of money. So it's extremely important to be able to time those withdrawals of the market. How do you protect your money? How do you make sure that you're diversifying your portfolio so this phenomenon does not happen to you? Here's a visual. I'm not going to say it's a nice visual because it's a pretty painful visual, but you can see the difference in the money, the impact on your portfolio based on the timing of those distributions. Look at that scenario B. Look at that line, 2013. So why it matters? Timing matters. Poor investment returns at the beginning or right after your retirement is detrimental to your plan. So it is very important to make sure that this is something that is baked into your plan. And how do you diversify your portfolio? Again, the person that invited you here today can definitely hold your hand and walk you through this and help you with your personal roadmap to retirement. You need these strategies. You need to be able to minimize the volatility within the market. And you need to make sure, like I said, you have that diversification. All right, we're to our next polling question here. Maybe. All right. Current understanding of how healthcare costs are going to impact your retirement plan. A is I'm just starting to learn about it. I know the basics, but I need a little bit more guidance. I've done some planning, but I'm unsure if it's enough. And D is I feel confident and want to fine tune. So go ahead and drop it into the poll, your answer, and we'll give it a few seconds here. All right, a couple answers still coming in. We're moving just a little bit. Okay. We're going to go ahead and close out the poll. And we are neck and neck. We have about the same percentage. We just closed it out and we have a winner. I've done some planning, but I'm unsure if it's enough. So we're talking about healthcare costs. We've had some planning, some preparation. 33% of attendees feel that it may not be enough. The second in our polling question is just getting started and just starting to learn about things. So we're happy you're here so we can get some of the basics and foundational pieces for you today, and then really help you kind of navigate to that right person and following up to have those ongoing conversations. Okay. So the average retiree at age 65, look at that number. You'll need $165,000 to cover healthcare expenses during your retirement. So this is the average retiree at age 65. Drop it in the chat. How many people are surprised by this number? Or is this a higher number that you thought? We've got a thumbs up. That's what somebody had expected. Is this a surprise or is this about right? Okay. We'll have that chat coming in, chat answers coming in, thumbs up, thumbs down, and we will continue on. So medical risk, healthcare costs are rising just like every other cost that are out there. That is no surprise. And the median retiree is going to spend a little over $4,000 on medical expenses, most of which is Medicare premiums. So if you think about just the premium and satisfying the premium, that is going to be that average retiree spend. 25% of the Social Security benefits went towards medical costs. So when you're looking at Social Security benefits, think about that. You just lost 25% of your income that's allocated to your Medicare costs, your medical costs. So that's a medical risk, right? So you have to make sure you're planning for those potential expenses. Long-term care, this one is scary. So long-term care is so very expensive. And when you think about going to the state and having the state to manage your care because you didn't properly plan for your retirement and long-term care is also very scary. Some of those facilities are definitely not where we want our loved ones, let alone our future to be living in those facilities. So think about by 2050, 255,000. And so that is so crazy, isn't it? And it's just that estimate just blows me away. So 22% will experience minimal needs, thankfully, right? So you have to plan though for those moderate needs and then those full needs because you're not sure what your future is going to bring. So nursing home costs in a private room, $100 and almost $10,000. If you add in inflation, look at what that is going to look like. So these are scary numbers. These are scary numbers. And the only way you're going to manage through is if you plan and you start planning as soon as possible. So it's very vulnerable financially in your retirement, and it can take away all of your retirement if you're not planning properly. Okay, so let's revisit those 4 buckets that we just chatted about. So we chatted about longevity. We talked about outliving your money. We talked about inflation and things increasing, the expenses increasing. We talked about distributions, a little bit about timing and distributions as it relates to losses in the market. And then we also talked about medical, kind of the doom and gloom of the expenses of medical needs in your retirement, both on the Medicare payment side as well as for long-term care. So if you stop working today, how confident, that should be an R, that your income would cover your needs for the next 25 years? So I know I'm asking a lot because we're not all at retirement age, but let's open up this third poll. How confident are you? Very confident, you have a solid plan, somewhat confident, you might have some gaps and questions, not confident at all, you don't have a true plan, and you haven't really thought that far ahead. So let's go ahead and drop your questions in the chat and let's see what we have going on here. All right, a few more seconds. We're calculating. All right, so from a income standpoint, we have a great group with us today. You're saying that you're somewhat confident. You have some gaps and some questions, which is very normal. But you have some confidence behind your plan. And so you're feeling that you're tracking pretty well. You might need a little help to get you over a hump or to get those gaps filled. And again, whoever invited you today is that person. So you want to make sure you have that conversation about your specific situation and get those questions answered. So let's go ahead here and keep the party going. All right, so now what? So we did discuss the risks, remember those kind of 4 categories and how they're impacting your retirement security. So we also talked about how things can go wrong, right? Before you retire and after you retire. We've talked about the concerns that you guys have with outliving your income and needing that guaranteed retirement income stream. So how do you manage these risks? So how do you manage through this? Well, you have to be strategic. You cannot have a plan that is not fully what I call baked. and really mapping out that plan. We no longer can do just the whole 4% rule. I like this image where it's praying, right? 4% and pray. Just because of market volatility, because of the four categories of risks that we just talked about. And so you have to really have more diversification in your plan, and you have to plan for all of those risks. The 4% rule will not save you overall. What you have to think about as well is, what do you want your retirement income to do? So there is just the have tos, right? The things that you have to do. You have to cover your expenses. This could be your mortgage or your rent. This could be your health care. This could be your utilities. Those are things that are essential for you to be covering. Then you've got your wants, right? So a lot of people want to travel within their retirement. They want to do their hobbies. Maybe they want to invest in their family and spend and have the opportunity to really spend time and maybe even gift their family. And so most people, when they're planning for retirement, they do blur the lines of wants and needs. So it's really important to have that accountability partner, that person you're talking to, that financial coach and advisor that can really talk through what those true needs and what are wants, because you really need to start with that, answer those answers to those vital questions before you start your planning process. And so here's some steps, right? You're going to discover your expenses. If you have a budget currently and you're managing your expenses, you're ahead of the game. But just really understand what that looks like in retirement. Again, what is essential and what is voluntary, what are needs and what are wants. And so you need to first and foremost provide for those essential expenses. A lot of people use Social Security for the essential expenses. Typically, Social Security will not go further than those essential expenses. Now, pensions are kind of a thing of the past, but there are some pensions out there. And so a lot of times that Social Security and the pension is what covers those essential expenses. And then you're going to fund your voluntary expenses. And this is usually what happens with your savings, your investments, your other growth vehicles, in order for you to pay for those voluntary costs. Remember, we talked about those being, hobbies and traveling and family. And so you want to make sure you have that layer, because you've worked really hard all your life and you really want to enjoy those retirement years. And then you're going to review and adjust. So it's not just put a plan together, put it up on the shelf, because life happens, doesn't it? So every year you want to sit with your financial professional and you want to make sure you're reviewing things. Things change, your goals change. Maybe your concerns are going to change a little bit because something's happened within your family and within your life. And so you really want to make sure that your retirement plan stays effective and relevant to what your needs and your goals are. And the only way to do that is just have a meeting with your financial professional and just take a look at everything and have those conversations. What would you spend in retirement? So this is really hard. We just went back to kind of talking about the basics, but this is really hard to predict. So if you're in your 30s, let's say, how do you know what you're going to be spending in retirement, right? So you're guesstimating a lot of these things. And then what are you going to spend on those needs and wants? And so really a good way to kind of think about your expenses and your expenses first. Let's do that first. When you think about your expenses in retirement, especially if you do have a very long look, the thinking is that you're going to need 85% of your current income to cover those expenses. And so roughly around there, it depends on what stat you're going to look at, right? And so those are your basic needs: housing, food, healthcare. About 85% of your annual income is what is needed. But it's your retirement, right? It's your retirement, and you've worked very hard. And so you want to make sure you're guesstimating the right difference between your essentials and your wants, okay? So you want to make sure that you are planning for those wants as much as you are making sure you're covering those essentials. All right, what is voluntary? Okay, that's a fun budget, right? And I think we all could probably assume we're talking about going out, we're talking about vacations, hobbies, fun. with the grandchildren, things we've already covered. So this is voluntary. A lot of people, when we sit down for retirement, they know what essential is, but they want to lump this into essential. But you really do need to keep them separate for thinking of diversification of your retirement portfolio. Again, check it annually. Review that retirement income and expenses at least once a year to make sure it's still aligned with your goals. Connect with your financial professional. Adjust for the major life events. You're going to rebalance your portfolio. You're also going to update your beneficiaries. This is extremely important. When you're talking on an annual basis too with your financial coach, whoever invited you today, what you're also going to be talking about is a little bit about estate planning. We typically have some referral sources and some great recommendations, both for estate planning, but we also will want to do a deeper dive into tax advantage strategies for you. So this is going to be very important. So updating those beneficiaries, making sure your portfolio is rebalanced, taking a closer look at estate planning as well as tax advantage strategies. So before you act on your retirement plan, it's important that you know what your income options are. So many people think, okay, I have this 401k and I have Social Security. So that's kind of their go-to, right? And so you really need to make sure you understand what those avenues for income are, and then how you can kind of feed those avenues and the different roles they play within your retirement plan. So Social Security, that's a no-brainer, right? We all know about Social Security. We have some pensions out there still a little bit, but usually those are a thing of the past as it relates to those plans. Retirement accounts, those are your IRAs, those are your 401ks, very similar plans. You've got your annuities. This offers that predictable income, your lifetime income stream, high growth, low fees. Brokerage accounts, flexible savings for additional growth. Obviously, in that, you've got to take a closer look at those market risks as it relates to your retirement planning. You've got your savings accounts and CDs. These are very low risk. These are low growth, but they're also easily accessible funds. You got real estate or rental income. So there is some opportunities typically later in life to do some shifts with your investments and kind of add this as an income stream for you later on in life. But there's a lot that comes with real estate and rental income. So the sooner you prepare, the better. And then part-time employment. So people go to part-time employment because they want to have a purpose. Maybe they want to have a schedule. Maybe they're bored. Maybe it could be something that they need to do. But this is, certainly another income stream. So diversification is important. When you are meeting with your financial professional, they're going to talk about these, what I call buckets, and then really kind of navigate through the ranking of these for you for your income stream in retirement. Let's see. So lifetime sources of income. When we got the party started, everybody said that not everybody, but the majority said that they really wanted to focus in on guaranteed income. The cool part about who invited you here today is they're all over it. So they have a number of financial vehicles that will actually shock you or surprise you in some cases that really generate the guaranteed income. And so you've got your Social Security benefits, sort of guaranteed income. Again, those pensions, but we hesitate to mention it in this training because pensions are definitely a thing of the past. And then you have annuities, and we're not talking about your grandpa's annuity that's slow growth and high fees. We're talking about programs that really have great structure, strong growth, good bonuses, and low fees. So that's something that's also a source of lifetime income, which is something you definitely want to explore given those polling responses. And then do they cover the essential expenses and why it matters? So when you think about those, again, the wants versus the needs and all of that stuff, you need to make sure these guaranteed income streams are going to cover your essential expenses. And wouldn't it be great if you could get a lineup within your retirement plan that also oozed into those wants? Wouldn't that be great? So that's something we want to make sure that when we talk with you, we understand your goals and your needs and see what we can do to get that lineup for you. Covering those financial gaps. We've hit on this a couple of slides. I do kind of feel like this brings it home a little bit. Because of the gaps you have, when you understand kind of what that income is within your retirement, and we can absolutely help you do that. When you understand what that need is in your retirement and you understand where you're at today, we can absolutely identify that gap and help map you into covering that gap. But again, all of that is making sure that we are in the know about your goals and your concerns and where those risk, and we take into account those risk buckets. And so it's just really important to have that open conversation so we can start mapping it out. And just as important as mapping it out right out of the gate is also those annual conversations. So guaranteed lifetime income, don't worry, retire happy. I don't know how many people have read this book, but this is one of the favorite quotes from it. Knowing that you have income, no matter what happens in the market, is going to be the least amount of stress you'll ever experience. I'm going to share with you just really quick here. We have a few minutes. I met with a couple. The husband is a CFO. And so the thinking is, hey, he's a CFO. He knows everything there is to know about his financial landscape and what his options are. But this family was so stressed about their financial future. They have 3 small children, one with special needs. They were really tight from a budget standpoint, and they really were very stressed, very, very stressed about what was going to happen in the future. And they're in their mid 40s. The husband actually is late 40s. And so what we were able to do is we were able to take a look at some old 401ks, and there was one IRA, and we were able to diversify their portfolio. But what more importantly is we were able to provide them with guaranteed income in their retirement. So we had a goal, and that goal was based on those essentials and those wants. And so we had that monthly goal, and we were able to deliver on that monthly goal. So mind you, they had no idea how they were going to retire when we first started the conversation. And then we mapped them into that financial goal for life. And so at retirement for life, guaranteed income. And you can just imagine, the wife cried, the husband, you could just see the big relief in that meeting. And I was crying too, because to be able to do that and help a family like that just by using the financial vehicles that have been available to us for years that people may not know about and may not really realize what's available to them, and delivering on that is one of the best joys about being in this profession. Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Here we go. Where am I at? Okay. Key takeaways. Boy, the PowerPoint slide is controlling me today, guys. Thank you for your grace. Usually I'm a little bit smoother than this. So let's say, okay, key takeaways. We hope today you have a clear understanding of those essentials versus discretionary expenses. We really want to make sure you understand kind of the sources of income in retirement as it relates to those essential costs. We really want to make sure that you know what your savings is, what you're trying to fund, your discretionary goals. We want to make sure you are clear on what those 4 areas of risk are. So you, as you are starting your journey, or maybe revising your plan, or maybe trying to figure out how you're going to fill those gaps we talked about. That way you can be very clear on where you're going. So what are the next steps? Who invited you? So whoever invited you did you a huge favor. Just chat with them. This is not about sales. This is not about anything but just helping. What we believe in here, we believe in serving, so we can empower you to make informed decisions. And so have a conversation, no obligation, and let's talk about your retirement planning. So contact today whoever invited you, and let's have that conversation. So before, I'm going to do a couple of slides here. We're going to cite where we pulled this information from. I know, boring stuff, guys, but we just want to make sure you understand that we pulled this information from valuable, reputable sources, and that the disclaimer here is that we're not trying to give you financial advice, but what we're trying to do is, again, serve, and educate so you can be empowered to make great decisions. So with that, I'm going to open up the chat. Does anybody have any questions? And if you want to go off mute, now is your time. Okay.
I have a question for you. A quick
Yes,
question
hi.
is, hi, how are you? Good presentation. Quick question is, is there a calculator that does the calculation of the basic needs that, most of the financial planners use?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you schedule with the person who had invited you today, they can help you navigate through that. There's a number of calculators out there
Mhm.
that you can use and they can use with you. We also have some tools that we use in our process. So for sure, because again, I think I referenced that crystal ball. You want to make an informed decision and put together some strong estimates for sure.
Now, and do you have any in mind that you use
Oh,
that's readily available in the market?
yeah, so like I said, whoever invited you can definitely get back with you and give you that resource. Like I said, there's many of them that we use, and it really depends on your situation and what we're trying. Like the average calculator is just going to give you a big general piece of information. So let's say you have some concerns on some tax strategies. So that's one calculator versus kind of so go through your goals and we go through your concerns and we really kind of match it up with the right calculator.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Anything else before we end today? All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for investing in your financial future and spending time with us today. These are all for you. So we want to make sure that you have access to this information after this session. So we will be distributing the recordings. You can also check out our website and our social media channels for the blog and recap of today's session. So with that, we will see you next Wealth Wednesday, which is the third Wednesday of every month at noon. Take care. Bye-bye.